I always thought I had a loving family. We weren't perfect, but we were solid, or at least that's what I believed. My name is Greg, I'm 55, and my wife Emma is 50. We've been together forever, raising 2 boys, Ethan, 28, and Luke, 25. We put our hearts into raising them, teaching them what we thought were good values, but now I'm left wondering if something went wrong along the way. Because what happened? It tore our family apart. Ethan and Luke always had a pretty close relationship. They had their fair share of secrets, some competition, but nothing out of the ordinary. Typical sibling stuff, right? Sure, Luke had moments where he was jealous of Ethan, but I always chalked it up to normal sibling rivalry. There was one time, I remember, when Ethan got picked for the school football team, and Luke was happy for him, but also seemed down for a few days. He felt like he didn't measure up. Emma and I sat him down, explained that he was younger, that he couldn't be expected to have the same skills just yet. Luke understood, and it wasn't anything malicious, just regular brotherly feelings. It wasn't all one-sided either. Ethan had his own insecurities, especially when it came to girls. He was always shy, nervous, while Luke had this natural charm. Luke would date more, and sometimes you could see Ethan feeling a little left out. Again, Emma and I would step in and talk to him, reassuring him. We weren't a perfect family, but we were normal. We had our ups and downs, but we always supported each other. Then Ethan left for college and everything changed. He became more outgoing, started going to parties, and really broke out of his shell. Emma and I were surprised, but happy to see him coming into his own. It was during this time he met Haley. She was 2 years younger than him, and Ethan was smitten with her from the start. He introduced her to the family after they'd been dating for about 2 years. He was 22, she was 20. She was warm, kind, and Emma and I really liked her. They looked great together, and we could tell Ethan was genuinely happy. That day, Ethan came to me privately and told me Haley was the one. He was so sure he wanted to marry her. I was happy for him, but as his dad, I gave him some advice. Don't rush into things. They were both still so young. I told him to give it time, to make sure they were not just in love but truly compatible for the long haul. He listened, or at least I thought he did. We saw Haley a few more times over the next year and a half, and everything seemed fine. Now, during this period, Luke was away at college too, in another state, and hadn't met Haley yet. That's where things started to go off the rails. About a year and a half after Ethan introduced Haley to us, things between them started to unravel. He wouldn't say much, but he stopped bringing her around, and we could see he was tense. Whenever Emma or I asked, he'd just say they were going through a rough patch. We didn't push him, figured he'd talk when he was ready, but a few months later we found out they had broken up. It hit him hard. She was his first serious girlfriend, and getting over the relationship took a lot out of him. Emma and I visited him regularly, trying to help him through the heartbreak, but Ethan never told us why they broke up. He just shut down whenever we asked. Their relationship had lasted over 4 years, and it took Ethan more than a year to fully move on. Now he's dating someone new, a woman named Maria, 26, and he seems genuinely happy. Emma and I are relieved to see him at peace. Meanwhile, Luke was living a completely different life. He had flings, casual relationships, but nothing serious enough to introduce anyone to us. We figured he was an adult and knew what he was doing, so we let him be. What we missed, though, was the tension slowly building between Ethan and Luke. Ever since the breakup with Haley, Ethan had been avoiding Luke. At the time, we thought it was a coincidence. Ethan had always been more introverted and wasn't a big fan of family gatherings. He stopped coming home as much, preferring to have us visit him instead. It didn't seem strange to us back then, and we never pressured him to attend those gatherings. Luke, on the other hand, came home regularly, and nothing he did or said indicated any issues between him and Ethan. It wasn't until recently that the truth came out, and it hit us like a freight train. A few days ago, Luke told us he wanted to introduce us to someone, and we were thrilled. This was the first time he'd ever introduced us to a girlfriend, so naturally, Emma and I were looking forward to meeting her. But when I saw who walked through that door, it felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. I was speechless. It was Haley. Luke then dropped the bombshell. He and Haley were getting married. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. I was in complete shock, and for a minute I thought it had to be some twisted joke. But the serious look on Luke's face told me it wasn't. The first thing I could say was, "Does Ethan know about this?" Haley looked incredibly uncomfortable, and Luke said that Ethan had known for a long time and was okay with it. I knew my sons. There was no way Ethan would ever be okay with this. I told Luke to stop lying because I didn't believe a word of it. That's when he lost his temper, accusing us of playing favorites and not being happy for him. He said that when Ethan and Haley were together, we couldn't stop praising her, but now we couldn't even look her in the eye. He accused us of having double standards, of accepting Ethan's relationship with Haley but reacting so harshly to his. I was furious. I told Luke what he was doing was unforgivable and, in my eyes, practically a betrayal. I looked to Emma for support, but she had left the room. A few minutes later, she came downstairs holding all of Luke's important documents and threw them at him, telling him never to show his face to her again. Luke said he had come to invite us to his wedding, but we didn't deserve the invitation. I told him attending that wedding would be a nightmare, so I was glad we weren't invited because we wouldn't have gone anyway. He stormed out with Haley, and Emma and I just stood there, in total disbelief. Before I even had time to process what had just happened, Emma called Ethan. She asked him if he knew about Luke and Haley, and that's when everything came out. Ethan told her that Haley had cheated on him. With Luke. That's why they broke up. At first, Ethan didn't know the other man was Luke, just that Haley had been unfaithful. They had tried to move past it, but it kept eating away at him. Eventually, he asked her over and over who the other guy was, but she refused to tell him. The stress of it all took its toll, and Ethan finally ended things. Just 2 months after they broke up, Haley was already with Luke. That's when Ethan told me how he found out that his own brother Luke had been the one Haley cheated on him with. I asked if he had ever confronted Luke about it, and he said he had. Ethan asked Luke why he did it, telling him that while Haley wasn't family, he never expected betrayal from his own brother. Luke's response? "We all do shitty things when we're in love." That was the last time the two brothers spoke. I asked Ethan why he hadn't confided in us sooner, and his response broke me. He said it was his personal issue and he didn't want us to think poorly of him. He felt that involving us wouldn't have made anything better. Listening to him, the one who had been so wronged, trying to be the bigger person, it shattered me. I teared up, apologizing for not being a better father and for not questioning the growing distance between him and Luke all these years. It's been 3 days since Luke and Haley's visit, and both Emma and I are still in shock. We've decided not to attend their wedding. I told Emma that I don't want anything to do with Luke or Haley. They're dead to me as far as I'm concerned. Ethan, on the other hand, urged us not to ruin our relationship with Luke over this, but for Emma and me, this is the only right thing to do. Yesterday, I got a call from my parents. They live down south, and while we don't see them often, we've always been close. When my kids were born, they set up college funds for both of them. I was a bit hurt because I wanted to be the one to take care of that. But in the end, both boys got partial scholarships and used my funds, so their grandparents' money stayed intact. On their 21st birthdays, my dad told them they could use the money however they wished, no strings attached. Well, apparently Luke was planning to use that money to fund his wedding to Haley. My dad called me, furious about our decision not to support the wedding. He said Luke had told him we weren't attending, and Dad was livid. He accused me of abandoning my son on the most important day of his life and demanded that I trust Luke's judgment. He even said Haley was a lovely girl. I couldn't believe he was siding with Luke and Haley. But as he ranted, I realized he had no idea about the entire situation. How could he? Ethan never told anyone, and Luke certainly wasn't going to be upfront about it. I muted the phone and asked Emma if we should tell my dad the truth. She agreed that he needed to know, otherwise people would blame us and Ethan for not supporting Luke, even though he was the one in the wrong. When Dad finally finished his tirade, I told him to hear me out with an open mind. I explained everything, from the time Ethan and Haley started dating, the troubles in their relationship, the breakup, and finally, the truth about Luke and Haley. At first, Dad didn't believe us. He accused us of playing favorites and making up a story to cover ourselves. He even demanded proof. That's when Emma pulled out her phone. She had a photo from one of our family get-togethers with Ethan and Haley. She sent it to Dad. After a long pause, he sighed deeply and told us he'd get back to us. This morning, Emma got a call from him. He had spoken to Luke and Haley, and everything came crashing down. Luke had tried to lie, but Dad saw right through him. He told Luke that he wouldn't be getting a single penny from the fund. Luke started crying, begging him to reconsider, reminding Dad that he had promised them the money with no conditions. Luke even tried to guilt-trip him, saying he wasn't a man of his word if he didn't give him the money. But Dad had heard enough. Given my father's temper, I wasn't surprised when he told Luke that not only would he never see that money, but he had decided to give the entire fund to Ethan instead. It was then that Luke realized just how badly he had messed up. He tried to apologize, saying it was all said in the heat of the moment, but Dad didn't budge. He told Luke that his entitlement and lack of remorse were unforgivable. Dad called Emma to update her on everything and thanked us for telling him the truth. He said if he had unknowingly financed this wedding, the guilt would have eaten him alive. He also mentioned that he planned to tell the rest of the family about what had happened so that everyone would know the real story behind Luke and Haley's relationship. Emma was worried. She felt that dragging Ethan back into this mess might hurt him more than help. After all, he had moved on, and reopening old wounds might do more harm than good. But Dad reassured us he had already spoken to Ethan, and Ethan was okay with the family knowing the truth. He said to do whatever we needed to. And so here we are, still reeling from everything, trying to figure out where to go from here. Dad has been adamant about blowing the whole situation wide open, and he wanted to ask us if we had any objections. Sophia told him she was fine with whatever he decided, especially since Nathan was dead to us now. She said she would check with me first before confirming. When she asked me, I told her I was more than happy with what Dad planned. Some might see it as petty, but cheating has always repulsed me. To know that my own son was involved in an affair with his brother's girlfriend made me lose all respect for Nathan. I can't help but wonder where we went wrong raising him. But now, I know my priority is standing up for Jared, not worrying about family reputation. Nathan's actions are unforgivable, and no amount of redemption can erase what he's done. I know this will cause drama in the family, and I'm scared for Jared's sake. But if Jared is okay with everyone knowing the truth, who am I to stop it? I wish we weren't in this situation, but this is where we are now. Update 1. All of us received a forwarded message from Dad. Here's what it said. I have always loved my grandkids and tried my best not to be biased. I am not saying I've been a hands-on grandfather, but Judith and I have always loved and cared for them. When Jared, Nathan, Bianca, Roxana and Tyler were born, we set up funds for each of them to use however they wished. This use as they wish came with an unsaid understanding that it wouldn't be used for immoral purposes. I initially planned to give Nathan money for his wedding to Haley, who seemed like a sweet girl when Judith and I met her. I was happy to contribute to their life together. Imagine my shock when I found out that Haley was actually Jared's ex-girlfriend and had cheated on him with Nathan. At first I didn't believe it, but to my dismay it was true. I am now withdrawing my offer to fund this wedding. What I choose to do with that money is my decision alone. None of you have any claim on it. I will also not be attending the wedding because I cannot support such an unholy union. I felt it was necessary to share this information in case Nathan or Haley attempt to misrepresent me or my principles. What you do with this knowledge is up to you. Dad sent that message to everyone he considers close family. I don't know if Nathan or Haley have received it yet, and honestly, I'm not interested in finding out. My sister called me after she got the message, asking what on earth was going on. I explained everything, and like us, she was furious with Nathan. She said she wouldn't be attending the wedding either. When I told her Sophia and I had cut ties with Nathan, she seemed relieved, thinking we might have gone along with it for the sake of appearances. She asked if Nathan knew about Dad's message, and I told her I didn't care. Nathan is on his own now. I raised him better than this, but if he's chosen this path, then he's no son of mine. Update 2. The wedding is off. 10 days after Dad sent that text, Nathan came home crying, saying that we were the reason he was so unhappy. Apparently the text reached some extended family, and now no one will attend the wedding. Haley couldn't handle the pressure of the backlash, so she called off the wedding and stopped responding to Nathan's calls. I can't say I felt bad for him. I didn't know how to comfort him, nor did I want to. He kept sobbing, and honestly, I was glad I didn't kick him out because I found out that Hayley had been lying to her family too. She told them her breakup with Jared had happened a year earlier than it actually did, and that Jared was fully aware of her relationship with Nathan. Everyone on her side believed her lies until Dad's message exposed the truth. Now, she's been disowned by her parents and ostracized by her family and friends, people who once thought highly of Jared. Nathan, however, blamed us for everything. He said we ruined his life by getting involved in his personal matters, but the truth is, both Hayley and Nathan have lost all respect in the eyes of their loved ones. I told him shifting blame onto us was easier for him, but it didn't change the fact that he made the choice to betray his brother. He tried to sell us the same true love story, but Sophia was having none of it. She told him bluntly that his actions were disgusting and that she couldn't believe her son turned out this way. When I asked Nathan why he pursued Hayley, fully knowing she had been Jared's girlfriend, he had no answer. He just accused Jared of holding a grudge and said these things happen in adulthood. I asked him if he was sorry for breaking his brother's heart, and all he could do was ask if we were sorry for ruining his marriage plans. That's when I knew there was no hope left. I told Nathan that this was the last time he'd ever step foot in my house. He could do what he wanted with his life, but I wanted no part of it. He accused us of loving Jared more than him, and I told him we treated both of them equally. If he felt this was favoritism, then he was delusional. I made it clear that we were standing by what was right, not by Jared. He glared at us before storming out, and last night he blocked both of us on everything. I can't say it doesn't hurt to see my family shattered like this, but I know there's nothing more I can do to fix it. Update 3. It's been a month since the wedding was called off. Hayley and Nathan have broken up. Hayley had the audacity to try and reconnect with Jared, apologizing and asking if they could give it another shot. Jared blocked her number immediately. He warned us that she might even show up, but thankfully that hasn't happened. As for Nathan, he still refuses to believe he did anything wrong. He's not talking to anyone, and no one is talking to him. We don't know where he is, and while it worries me as his father, I know extending an olive branch would be a mistake. This is the reality now. Our family will never be the same. I never imagined we would go through something like this, but it's clear fate had other plans. All I can do now is stand by what I know to be right. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Do like and share the video, subscribe to the channel,